From Joe Namath wanting to kiss a reporter during an interview,
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
to Buddy Ryan punching Kevin Gilbride on camera.
Then we go to the sideline where offensive coordinator Kevin Gilbride obviously hears something and walks toward defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan.
Here are some NFL moments that were never supposed to be filmed. Mark Sanchez sneaks a hot dog. If you ever wondered what it looks like when a quarterback completely surrenders to the existential weight of being a quarterback, look no further than Mark Sanchez and his October afternoon ballpark snack. The date was October 25th, 2009. The Jets, dressed in throwback Titans uniforms for some inexplicable reason, were absolutely steamrolling the Oakland Raiders 38-0 in a fourth quarter that had stopped pretending to be competitive. Sanchez was a rookie, freshly anointed as the Sanchez, riding the bench in the kind of comfortable garbage time every quarterback dreams about after a 5-interception meltdown the previous Sunday. So he did what any starving 22-year-old surrounded by stadium food would do. He ordered room service. According to Sanchez's own retelling years later on Good Morning Football, he had been so nervous before kickoff that he barely ate. As the blowout dragged on and his stomach started growling, he asked someone for real food. A hot dog appeared. Sanchez even requested mustard. And then, with the entire CBS broadcast pointing cameras at the Jets bench, he tried to inhale this stadium frank like a raccoon hiding behind a dumpster.
You know that life is good when you're the quarterback of the New York Jets and you can eat a hot dog on the sideline.
The cameras were not fooled. Neither were the announcers, who immediately started narrating the snack like it was 4th and goal. The lens zoomed in. The hunch became more pronounced. The hot dog disappeared one shameful, mustard-streaked bite at a time.
During the last TV timeout, Mark Sanchez is trying his best to hide a hot dog and eat it.
By the time the team returned to the locker room, the clip was already racing across the early internet. Sanchez offered a sheepish apology in the post-game press conference, citing queasiness and bad decision-making. There was no fine, no punishment, just a shared cultural agreement that the future of the New York Jets had been caught moonlighting as a bleacher creature on his own bench. The Raiders never forgot. 2 years later, when the teams faced off again, Oakland coach Hugh Jackson reportedly used that very clip as motivational material to fire up his locker room. Patrick Mahomes' dad bod.
Stop today, like I've been saying, we ain't done yet.
When you've already won a Super Bowl, married your high school sweetheart, fathered multiple children, and signed a contract that could fund a small island nation, the worst thing the universe can do to you is point an NFL Films camera at your stomach, which is exactly what happened to Patrick Mahomes on January 28, 2024. The Kansas City Chiefs had just punched their ticket to Super Bowl 58 with a 17-10 win over the Baltimore Ravens. Cameras from the Inside the NFL series were rolling deep in the visiting locker room. Andy Reid spoke first, reminding the team they still had one more game to win. Then Patrick Mahomes, jersey already off because he just spent 4 hours getting hit by 300-pound men, stepped up to deliver his short post-victory pep talk. His message was simple: stay focused, the job is not finished. But the camera, mounted at exactly the wrong height, caught something the league did not intend to broadcast. A still frame from the footage emerged on social media within hours. There was a softness to the midsection, a perfectly normal post-game body that had no business being broadcast in 4K from below. The internet immediately christened Mahomes with the title Dad Bod, and the joke spread faster than any of his sidearm passes ever did. Mahomes did the only thing a smart man can do when the entire country is dragging his torso. He laughed first.
Patrick takes to X, formerly known as Twitter, to give followers his honest reaction, and goes on to add, like I got kids.
He posted, why they have to do me like that? Hashtag DadBodZN, and tagged the Chiefs, the NFL, and Inside the NFL itself, all of whom played along in the replies. Then the merch started. Custom t-shirts. Coors Light got involved with an officially licensed Dad Bod t-shirt collaboration tied to Mahomes' charitable foundation. Teammate Rashee Rice eventually showed up to off-season workouts wearing a shirt printed with the exact viral image, just to twist the knife in good fun. The Dad Bod entered the football canon. Mahomes, 2 weeks later, won the Super Bowl anyway. Aaron Rodgers eats his boogers. There is no worse fate in the modern age of high-definition broadcast technology than to be a quarterback with a runny nose on national television. Aaron Rodgers learned this in the dying minutes of an embarrassing Sunday Night Football loss to the Pittsburgh Steelers on October 20th, 2024. The Jets were losing 37-15. Rodgers had already thrown 2 interceptions. The season was unraveling in real time. And then, with the camera lingering on him in close-up, Rodgers reached up to his nose, dug around with the kind of confidence only a man who has stopped caring can summon and then appeared on live television to deposit his findings directly into his own mouth. NBC's high-definition feed left almost nothing to the imagination. TMZ posted the clip the next morning under a headline mentioning gold mining. Social media did the rest. Rodgers, to his credit, did not run from the moment. He went on his weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show 2 days later, and the topic was not avoided.
In a moment, I was thinking, man, I hope the camera's not on me right now.
He said you ate your books.
Yep.
McAfee presented Rodgers with the evidence and asked for a defense. Rodgers offered one with the practiced calm of a man who has handled bigger PR storms.
As far as the boogs goes, I've actually never eaten my boogers. That's one thing I'm very proud of.
He went further, claiming he had never eaten a booger, not even as a child, and demanded a side angle to clear his name. He floated a theory about smelling salts, suggesting perhaps something had simply slipped off the rim of the bottle. He admitted, however, that the camera angle wasn't doing him any favors.
It's a tough look to try and defend, because that video is a little incriminating.
The internet was unmoved. The Jets continued losing. The booger video became the kind of permanent meme that resurfaces every time someone wants to trash Rodgers on a slow news day. Peyton Manning's "God damn it, Donald." There has never been, before or since, a quarterback who treated every play like a final exam quite the way Peyton Manning did. He studied film like a graduate student writing a dissertation. He audibled at the line so often that defensive coordinators wrote entire playbooks just to confuse his hand signals, and he expected every teammate to operate on his level, which was approximately 3 stories above the actual NFL average. So, when one of them failed to keep up, the universe heard about it. On January 16th, 2010, in an AFC divisional playoff game between Manning's top-seeded Indianapolis Colts and the Baltimore Ravens, the universe heard a particularly clear example. Lucas Oil Stadium had a reputation in those early days of being almost unnaturally quiet. The side effect of all that civility was that the field microphones picked up everything. Late in the game, Manning lined up in the shotgun and called out a protection adjustment to his rookie running back, Donald Brown. The Ravens were sending pressure from his blind side. Brown instead went the opposite direction. The pocket collapsed. Multiple Ravens defenders came free, untouched, hurtling toward the most expensive limb in football. Manning scrambled to his right with the kind of desperation that only happens when an offensive line has completely failed you. And then, as he ran for his life with a sideline microphone planted somewhere within 10 feet of him, he turned and screamed 2 words that would define the moment forever.
Slides down at the 16. And there's another
The CBS broadcast feed picked up Manning's now legendary roar of "God damn it, Donald," with absolutely zero filtering, censoring, or dignity preserved. It aired live to millions. Donald Brown on the field was visible throwing his hands up in confusion as the play ended, looking like a kid who had just been called down for tracking mud onto the carpet. There was no fine, no apology, no public discipline. Manning's intensity was already a known quantity, and his teammates simply took it as Tuesday at the office. But the audio became a meme that has refused to die for 15 years. The play perfectly captured the unpolished reality behind the polished Manning mythology. He was a Hall of Famer. He was the face of professional football, and in a single soundbite, he sounded exactly like a frustrated dad yelling at his kid for forgetting to take out the garbage. Chris Cooley's accidental playbook photo. Before Twitter became the universal town square for athletes, there was the Wild West era of player blogging. And in that era, no athlete was more enthusiastic, more accessible, or more willing to share than Washington Redskins tight end Chris Cooley. By 2008, he was a 2-time Pro Bowler, a fan favorite, and a guy actively doing something nobody else in the league was doing. He had launched a personal blog, run informally with help from his brother Tanner, where he wrote about his life, his hobbies, and the inside jokes of life in an NFL locker room. On Sunday, September 14th, 2008, Cooley was at home preparing for a game against the New Orleans Saints. Coach Jim Zorn had introduced a quirky team bonding exercise that week, a tight end test, stapled into the playbook. Cooley wanted to share this slice of behind-the-scenes culture with his readers, so he grabbed his camera. He balanced the playbook on his lap. He snapped a photo. He uploaded it. And then he stopped paying attention to the internet for the rest of the day. There was just one small problem with the photo. Cooley, in his own words, had been studying the playbook completely naked. The camera angle, instead of cropping at his waist like a normal photo, had captured everything. His exposed anatomy was clearly visible at the bottom of the frame. The image sat live on his blog for nearly an entire day before anyone in his orbit caught it. Deadspin found it first. Other blogs followed within hours. The next morning, the Cooley brothers issued a now famous apology with the simple title, "We're dumb," where they wrote that the original photo had stayed up so long because the team had been busy winning. The NFL did not find it as funny as the bloggers did. League officials ordered Cooley to undergo a psychiatric evaluation. A phone call he later told Sports Illustrated was supposed to last 2 minutes and somehow stretched into a full hour. Cooley was firm in his defense. He pointed out, reasonably, that nobody who actually wanted to expose themselves online would do it while hunched over a binder full of plays. The early social media era of athletes had been put on notice, and Cooley had been the unintentional canary in the coal mine. Tarik Cohen's Instagram live exposes Kyle Long. By 2019, every NFL player understood the basic ground rules of locker room phones. You did not film your teammates, you did not film yourself in the wrong direction, and you definitely did not go live on Instagram from inside a locker room while people were undressing. Tarik Cohen, the 5'6" dynamo running back of the Chicago Bears, was about to learn all 3 lessons in one 10-second moment. The date was September 23, 2019, just minutes after the Bears had beaten the Washington Redskins 31-15 on Monday Night Football. Cohen, nicknamed the Human Joystick, was riding high. The Bears had a reputation under coach Matt Nagy for what they called Club Dub, the post-game celebration party where the entire team danced through their locker room. Cohen wanted to share that energy with his roughly 223,000 Instagram followers, so he propped his phone low to the ground, got it angled to capture his entire body dancing, and hit the live button. What he did not realize was that Pro Bowl offensive lineman Kyle Long was standing in the background, fully naked, for approximately 10 seconds. Long was just doing what every offensive lineman has done in every locker room, which is changing his clothes after the game. Cohen's low camera angle turned that mundane act into a full frontal broadcast for 200,000 people before friends started texting Cohen frantically. He cut the stream. He deleted the video, but by then, screenshots had already escaped into the wild. Cohen took full responsibility immediately, apologizing to Long in person and alerting Coach Nagy directly. Long, a Pro Bowl veteran with one of the best senses of humor in the league, handled the entire situation with the grace of a man who had clearly accepted the absurdity of his own life. He told reporters, "Embarrassing, embarrassing," and added that, had he known he would be naked on the internet, he would have prepared a little more thoroughly, but for what it was worth, he thought his butt looked pretty good. Cohen had violated NFL locker room media policy entirely by accident. There was no public fine, no suspension. The league quietly added the moment to its growing list of reasons why locker room cameras are restricted in the first place. Bud Adams flips the bird. For most of his life, Kenneth Bud Adams Jr. had been the kind of NFL owner who lived 2 steps behind the camera. He was one of the original founders of the American Football League, the man who built the Houston Oilers from the ground up in 1960, and the visionary who eventually relocated his franchise to Tennessee in 1997. He was 86 years old in November 2009, gray-haired, well-dressed, and seated in the kind of luxury suite where billionaires watch football, the way the rest of us watch a fish tank. Nobody on the broadcast crew was paying close attention to the owner's box on November 15, 2009, when his Titans hosted the Buffalo Bills at LP Field in Nashville. Both teams wore throwback jerseys for an AFL 50th anniversary tribute. The bond between Adams and Bills owner Ralph Wilson was supposed to be celebrated. Tennessee, after a slow start, exploded for 24 unanswered fourth quarter points to win 41-17. Adams, watching from his suite with all the genteel dignity of a man 4 times your grandfather's age, decided to celebrate. First, he flashed the Hook'em Horns hand sign, a tribute to Titans quarterback Vince Young's days at Texas. Then he aimed his hand at the Bills bench. Then, in full view of any fan with a phone, he individually extended the middle finger on his right hand, then on his left, and finally raised both at once in a perfectly synchronized double-barreled salute aimed straight at the Buffalo sideline. A fan in the stands captured the entire thing on an early generation iPhone 3G video and uploaded it to YouTube before the post-game interviews had ended. Commissioner Roger Goodell, who had literally eaten breakfast with Adams that morning, personally informed the 86-year-old owner the next day that he was being fined $250,000, the largest individual owner fine in modern NFL history at the time, what fans immediately and lovingly described as $125,000 per finger. Adams issued a written apology apology, copping to having been caught up in the excitement. Adams passed away in 2013. The double bird remains, to this day, the single most relatable thing he ever did on camera. Buddy Ryan punches Kevin Gilbride. The 1993 Houston Oilers, on paper, were a team built to win the Super Bowl. They had Warren Moon at quarterback. They had a dynamic run-and-shoot offense, coordinated by Kevin Gilbride. They had a brand new defensive coordinator, the legendary Buddy Ryan, hired to install the same merciless 46 defense that had won a championship with the 1985 Bears. What they did not have was a coaching staff that could be in the same room without somebody losing his mind. Buddy Ryan loathed the run-and-shoot. He believed it was reckless, and that turnovers from the offense were leading directly to injuries on his side of the ball. He referred to it publicly as the chuck and duck. Gilbride took the public ridicule personally. Ryan attacked the offense on his weekly radio show. Gilbride defended it on his. Practices became war zones. The Oilers won 11 games in a row down the stretch and locked up the AFC Central title at 12-4, but the dressing room was a powder keg with the fuse already lit. The match was struck on January 2nd, 1994, in the season finale against the New York Jets. The Oilers were leading 14-0 with about 30 seconds left in the first half. Gilbride, instead of running the clock out, kept calling pass plays. On the second of those passes, backup Cody Carlson got hit, the ball came loose, and the Jets recovered deep in Houston territory.
And Cody Carlson has the ball knocked away and fumbles.
The cameras caught the rest. Gilbride approached Ryan to discuss what had just happened. Words were exchanged, voices got louder, and then Buddy Ryan, an old defensive lifer, threw a real full-force right hand straight at Kevin Gilbride's face. It connected. Players, including receiver Curtis Duncan, jumped between them and physically pulled them apart while a national television audience watched in disbelief.
Then we go to the sideline where offensive coordinator Kevin Gilbride obviously hears something and walks toward defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan.
The broadcast announcer called it a totally classless act in real time. The Oilers won the game 24-0. Ryan offered no apology. He later remarked, only half-jokingly, that Gilbride would be selling insurance in 2 years. Gilbride, years later, would joke that he had survived 2 cancer diagnoses, and Buddy Ryan, in that exact order. Neither man ever spoke to the other again. Antonio Brown walks off shirtless. It is one thing for a wide receiver to be unhappy. It is another thing entirely for a wide receiver to remove every piece of his uniform, throw it into the stands, jog through an end zone shirtless on national television, and walk into a tunnel from which he will never return. That is the unprecedented stunt Antonio Brown pulled on January 2nd, 2022, in a Tampa Bay Buccaneers game against the New York Jets. He had won a Super Bowl with the Buccaneers in February of 2021. He had also, in 2021 alone, served a 3-game suspension for using a fake COVID-19 vaccination card and aggravated an ankle injury that had cost him 5 games. By the time of this Jets contest, he was reportedly chasing roughly $1 million in unmet performance incentives. The Buccaneers were trailing in the third quarter. According to subsequent reports and Brown's own lengthy statement, head coach Bruce Arians wanted him back on the field. Brown reportedly said his ankle would not let him. Words got loud. Arians made a throat-slash gesture, told him in clear language that he was done, and walked away. What happened next was captured frame by cameras that had no idea what they were about to broadcast.
I think it's one of the things that Tom Brady has brought to this team.
Antonio
Brown removed his helmet. He took off his jersey. He took off his shoulder pads. Mike Evans and O.J. Howard tried desperately to talk him down, pleading with him to put the equipment back on, but he was already past listening.
That's Antonio Brown without his uniform, we are told, without his jersey.
He stripped off his undershirt. He pulled off his gloves. He flung them into the crowd. And then, in the most surreal moment in modern NFL history, he started running.
Obviously, they were unable to do so. He tossed his shoulder pads, stripped off his shirt and glove, threw those into the crowd.
He jogged shirtless across the field while a live NFL game was still being played around him. He flashed a peace sign to the home crowd. He cut through the end zone. He disappeared into the tunnel. The announcers in the booth attempted to describe in real time something nobody in the history of broadcast football had ever needed to describe before.
Antonio Brown takes off his gear and runs into the locker room topless.
The Buccaneers won the game 28-24, with Tom Brady leading the comeback. Brown was officially released 4 days later. He has not played a down in the NFL since. Joe Namath wants to kiss Susie Colbert. By December 20th, 2003, Joseph William Namath had been retired from professional football for 26 years. He was 60 years old. He was a Hall of Famer. He was a New York icon. He was Broadway Joe, fur coat and all. And on this particular Saturday night football broadcast on ESPN, he was being honored by the Jets as part of their organizational legacy team. He had also, by his own later admission, been drinking steadily since around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. The game itself was forgettable. The Jets lost to the New England Patriots 21-16. The interview that followed was something else entirely. ESPN sideline reporter Suzy Kolber, polished and professional, was assigned to grab a quick comment from Namath about the team's struggling season. Namath was difficult to corner. He kept moving. When the camera finally caught up with him, his speech came out slow, slurred, and entirely off script. The producers in the truck, to their later regret, told Kolber to keep going.
Impresses me the same thing impresses them.
What does it mean to you now when the team is struggling?
Namath leaned in toward Kolber and said something that was not on any script in any production meeting in the history of ESPN.
I want to kiss you. I couldn't care less about the team struggling.
He repeated the line. Kolber, holding her composure with the kind of professionalism that should have earned her hazard pay, attempted to wrap up the interview, while Namath continued leaning toward her with a tipsy intensity that had nowhere good to go on a live broadcast.
I did the wrong thing. I want to kiss you.
Thanks, Joe.
The booth cut away. The damage had already been done. Namath would later tell biographers and reporters that the moment had haunted him in the days and weeks after.
I'm very disappointed with my behavior.
He called Kolber within days to apologize personally. Within weeks, in early 2004, he checked himself into an outpatient substance abuse program and also received treatment for depression. In his 2019 autobiography, All the Way, My Life in 4 Quarters, Namath would write, in plain and unsparing language, that the Suzy Kolber moment may very well have saved his life. He has not had a drink, by his own account, since that night on the sideline at Giants Stadium. What looks at first glance like a cringeworthy Hall of Famer humiliating himself on a national broadcast turned out to be something rarer and more meaningful. It was the worst moment of one man's life, captured live, that finally forced him to confront a problem nobody else could have made him face. Of all the moments on this list, this one was never supposed to be filmed, and in the strangest possible way, it might have been the most important one of all. That brings us to the end of this video. For more interesting videos like this, click on the cards on your screen.